that, very grounded. And I was born with asthma, born with a lot of allergies. And so, interestingly enough, I was a bubble kid who loved animals and grass. Okay. So, there were a lot of things involved with making sure I, didn't rub my eyes. If I pet a dog, don't touch your face, rolling in the grass, I'm coming back congested. But I enjoyed being truly a kid. My parents saw early, when we were living in St. Louis. As an infant, I had some breathing issues. The first doctor was like, nah, that's not true. Infants can't come into the world with illnesses. So that's how I'm not that old. This is the late 80s. A doctor is saying, no, that's not possible. So they went to a second professional who then diagnosed me with asthma. And from there, they did their best bringing me up. My parents were very young when they had me, and very young when they got married, fresh out of college. They both met at Washington University in St. Louis. So I got to kind of see the college world, grow up with them and their friends. It was like a different world, living single, and I was the little baby living with them. Well, they weren't living single, they were married, but it was a world of young adults and trying to make it or start out in their professions. I got to see them early. Now my mom and dad's friends are attorneys and doctors, and it was really impressionable time for me. But we ended up leaving St. Louis because of the smog and because of the asthma. Dance, however, was a huge aspect that shifted how my asthma played a role in my life. I did West African dance, and then later my parents put me in like ballet, tap, jazz, but West African did something to my lungs to where I don't want to say I grew out of asthma, because later on in life I did have things that I learned were triggers, but my lungs absolutely became stronger. And it was, you would never know I have asthma at this point in time. And so those little details really shifted me and changed me. But that's how much I danced. That's how much I was very active and involved. But also trying to find a way. I can be around cats and dogs now. I just know I need to pop a little Claritin and I'm good. But it's those were the things that kind of formed me as an adult in my childhood.
What do you wish you knew sooner about STEM?
I wish I knew sooner that it was not one-dimensional.
Yes.
I think that, again, I can't express how much I love hearing these different acronyms that are coming out: STEM, STEAM, STREAM, all of the different aspects to inform children. It does not have to look one singular way. That was a huge campaign when I first started out as an engineer. I realized being a Black woman and in engineering was unique. And at the time, that this was when I was with the Navy. When I'd go on the ships with my hard hat and my steel toe and my little pink tool belt, I remember I stood out every single time, hands down. Maybe there might be a Black female who was in the Navy, and she would be one of the sailors I'd train on how to manage, but that was rare. And then also because they were assigned to different parts of the ship. So, the engineering focused tool or tasks were typically, I didn't see a lot of females assigned to. I didn't see a lot of Black females assigned to. And then on the government side, I was the only Black female in my branch. And often when I'd go out to do jobs, I was the only Black female. So that piece always sat with me, where I was like, what am I going to do about it? If I'm really tired of that or seeing that, what's going on? So then I felt perhaps we're misinformed, right? Or, and then in my position, am I not being, an informant? Am I not doing my job to inform little girls who look like me, right? I started doing these opportunities, to talk to children, Girl Scouts, and then also the Great American Teach-In. And I remember asking girls off the back, when you think about engineering, what are some things that come to mind? Just yell out words. And most common, what I'd get was dirt, boys, and bridges. Those were the three top. And so I was like, wow, very interesting. That is where our scope is limited to when we think about engineering, as little girls. And then if you talk to just Black girls, they'll say some of the same things, but it then turns into everything that doesn't look like me, essentially. And it became important for me to help them see, Beyonce uses engineers, Disney World uses engineers, the movie theaters that are developed, the music theaters for different performances, orchestra, plays, Broadway plays, film, cinematography, engineers exist everywhere, sneakers, engineers exist everywhere. And so trying to bring that to light was a huge piece of my walk. And it still is. But I've now gone into a space where today I'm like, okay, that's not enough. Now I want to go into leadership. I want to become executive leadership to help shift the culture and do something different, but bring more people who are of diverse background, because I am truly a believer in, when you have the same kind of person in the room, we are all not doing enough different thinking.
Yes.
People don't understand how that actually impacts the mission or the project, so yeah.
So only because my podcast is information based, and I want to make sure that I'm shaping the information well. So you mentioned about the acronym STEAM. I want to share something that I think this is maybe a great initiative, but it's diluting the message of STEM. And so instead of building out all of these great acronyms, right, what they need to do is to have a better target. If we were to ask, what is the NBA or the NFL, we understand it better. Nobody's adding letters to make it understandable.
True.
At its simplest form, there's a STEM certification organization, and a lot of people are doing STEM discovery. To me, STEM discovery is a pipeline for skilled labor. Do you know what other thing has a skilled labor mass? Slavery. And so by not emphasizing the academic portion of STEM and making it accessible so that kids who are artists can find, artists are also designers, they're engineers, they're architects.
Yeah.
Why aren't we breaking it down so those same core STEM skills that, by the way, is a developmental milestone every human being needs.
Yes.
90% of the population can access STEM. Instead, we're doing art. The difference between the salary of an artist and an architect,
right,
is vast. And so we pushed into the lesser jobs. Immigrants are being brought in. I'm an immigrant. I don't have a problem with it. But when we have a huge population of people who can be trained, because what STEM is a technical skill. So it's
Mhm.
mechanic.
Yeah, yeah, you're
So,
right.
so it's HVAC tech, and they make way more than minimum wage.
Mhm.
And so instead of adding letters to
Mhm.
STEM, put money into making STEM accessible in underrepresented community. One of the things that the NSF said is that underrepresented schools don't have trained teachers. Put the money into training the teachers.
Correct.
Don't put arts and religion.
Yeah,
The problem.
that's a good point, and I don't disagree with that. I think for them to, and the irony is they cut down on the art and the religion anyway, so those classes don't exist.
Mm.
But as far as trying to bring to light the multidimension of STEM in itself, I think it is significant. We don't have the diverse thinkers in place
Yeah.
appropriating the dollars. Where the money is even coming from, the money that is being pipelined. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, because they're the ones with the money, they
Mhm.
are the ones feeling privy enough to make decisions about information they don't, that's not accurate. They're
Absolutely.
not utilizing accurate data. Go into the schools, meet the teachers, talk to the
Yes.
administrator, talk to the child. Who
Yes.
is talking to the child? No one.
Right. Me. That
You know,
that's what my program is designed for. Teachers, parents, and
I love
students of
that.
underrepresented community. Because I was like,
Yes. Because they need a voice. That is the issue. And really
yes.
and truly, so when I had my little segue, it was a 3-year segue as a teacher.
Wow.
My first year, I did not do great with uh my scores, my state scores, and that crushed me because I am not a student to to earn an F, okay?
Okay.
And so seeing the data of my students, I think it was like a 33% pass rate. I was sobbing, crying in my
Mhm.
principal's office and everything, and she was like, "Listen, you just need to do these things and take it into consideration." Well, anyhow, I did a lot of training and I studied under my principal and really took some time to understand what am I missing. This is the engineer, because I got to
Mhm.
figure out the formula. What am I not
Okay.
doing? And really and truly, it took me that year, that failure of a year, to recognize I am not talking to my students. I am
Mhm.
not listening to my kids and
Yeah.
understanding how different. Number one, they all have different learning modalities. Okay, well, I'm only one person. I got to get smart about how I'm going to reach and differentiate, use a little special teacher words. I
Okay.
got to figure out a way to be strategic and reach all 300 of my students, right? For optimizing my success rate, I then, number one, got rid of my personal desk in the classroom.
Mhm.
Okay, so I was like, I literally don't sit down that much, and it takes up a good chunk of square footage in my room. And I need my room to feel immersive, like we are in the math, right? We need to be able to graph on the floor if we want to, graph on the wall, graph on the ceiling if we want to. In order for that to happen, I need to make the room immersive. So I shifted desks. Did some floor seating, some standing, some regular chairs, and I allowed kids to determine how best do they feel like they learn, how best do they feel that they focus. And it became a situation where I was everywhere at all times. And after a while, there was a sense of empowerment that the student had. to hold themselves accountable for their own sense of learning. How much do I actually want to get out of the lesson today? Well, let me position myself for that success. Here are the things that work for me. We talked about IEPs because some students had learning by contract had some accommodations that they required to be able to learn, but I helped them understand that technically we all have to be accommodating to ourselves. And so I taught my kids how to give themselves grace in a space of, you know, a dynamic where the world tells you this is the only way to be successful. No, this is how I am successful. I need you to discover how you are successful. Let's explore that together, you know? So that was something that shifted me and shifted my students. And I went from the 33% passing rate to 80% passing rate within just that year. Because for me, I was like, I'm gonna lose sleep. I don't figure this out. But it started with talking to the child. So you know, as simple as I say it like that, I realize it's not a simple aspect to learn how to put your ego at the door, right? I don't have all the answers. I taught the kids the first year the way my math teacher taught me. And my mom always laughs at me with this, but I was the kid that was lit in math class with my note taking because I was like, hey, you know, I didn't know it was just me. Nobody else was in class that excited about taking notes. And Mr. Barger, he was one of my favorite teachers. He looked like Santa Claus. First of all, he was big belly and he write his notes in chalk across the board. And by the time, if you didn't get that bottom half, his stomach had erased it by then. So you had to, it was like a game. You had to, you had to keep up in taking the notes because they were gone if you weren't paying attention. But like, I didn't know I was the only child in the classroom excited to learn in that way. There were kids taking naps around me and all types of stuff. And that was what I saw in my classroom after that first year. I'm like, I can't teach the kids this one blanketed way. So then I started learning how to diversify my different teaching techniques even so that I could reach several different kids, but I also helped them understand you can evolve in your different areas of learning too. If you want to become a better note taker, let's talk about ways to change that, you know? So just because you are a better learner in this capacity doesn't mean you can't explore how to strengthen those others. So that's huge. We need their input in where these dollars need to go, how to disperse them.
And that's why I'm out here doing this because I told you I'm turning this whole thing. All right.
I love it.
The Trini in me. All right, no. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah. Yes. That is
how do you navigate it?
So more than recently, one thing I have a playlist, and I have a life coach who recommended this to me. I have three playlists. One is called Energy, one is called Identity, and one is called Encouragement. I pour different songs that qualify for me as energy. Same for identity and same for encouragement. Some of them are gospel, some of them are not. Because you got a lot of Beyonce songs today.
Okay, girl.
All three of those targets, okay? So it really is based on what I find uplifting. And then I do take time to alter those playlists as years go by because I am evolving, you know, and shaping as a woman and changing. Some songs don't do it for me like they did it for me last year. And in a way, it's it's like journaling, because it is songs essentially capture stories sometimes, but they are literally lifting me. And those are sometimes things that I cut on when I'm going through a space, just to be reminded who I am and whose I am. I have to go into this headspace of just being poured into, having something pour into my spirit, that positivity, and flush out the negativity. Because imposter syndrome is truly a sense of confusion, where you walk into a paradigm that's not yours and you measure yourself against it. And so you then feel, did I get this job by accident, or maybe I'm the Black person that they needed to fill their quota. You start saying all of these things that essentially are not true. None of them are, right? So any way that I possibly can get back to my truth, I do it. If it's journaling, I do that. But my playlist is hardcore medicinal, so I rely heavily on it in those darker moments.
As a child, this is complete sidebar. As a child, did you get to visit the Caribbean a lot?
Not a lot. But
ask me how I know.
What'd you say?
I said, ask me how I know. Because there's this thing called Caribbean Confidence. The least qualified person in the room, and you don't care. He's the biggest person here.
So that's the thing. I will say I'm grateful for my mom, because she has always instilled in me. And I just told someone this at work. But for instance, boyfriends, right? She was the kind of person like, why are you sitting around waiting for him to call? Call him. What's the worst that could happen? That's what she would always say. He says no. Oh, well, move on. And honestly, the sooner the more time you have for what you want next. And so that was how I processed a lot of things. But typically people don't see my imposter syndrome. We fake it till we make it. And that is the biggest thing. I will say, as a Black person, I do not allow people to see. But it's happened. It has happened before.
Yeah. What does STEM mean to you?
Science and technology and engineering and math. It is holistic. It is life itself. That's in a nutshell. That is what I feel it means.
I love that. I love that. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Let's go ahead and say bye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.